Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/spookshow. Then go over to morbidlybeautiful.com as we are now part of the Morbidly Beautiful Podcasting Network.
Now, here is a motion picture film.
And now, ladies and gents, it's yo time.
To do the bimes.
Say hello to my little friend.
Go ahead. Make my day.
Come quietly or there will be trouble.
I'll shove that bat up your ass and turn you into a popsicle.
Inconceivable.
Welcome to the All-American Spook Show podcast.
I'm sorry, boys. I'm afraid I can't do that. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the All-American Spook Show podcast. I'm Josh and I'm joined here with the Professor Smoke.
What's up?
And we're down at Tiana, so we had to call in somebody from the bullpen, and it's our old pal Adam Portrais.
Hello there, everyone. Glad I could be here. And listen, I'm very much the Tiana type myself.
Yeah.
Bringing a lot of that energy.
Well, that's what we were aiming for, the same demographic.
Yeah. Well, hey, filled with sass, you got it.
Yeah, there you go. What is the name of your podcast these days? Because I know you guys changed up here recently.
Lord have mercy. Yeah. So for 10 years or so, we were a hero movie podcast where we covered superhero movies and television shows. And after 10 years, as you might imagine, it got a little laborious. So we decided to change over to half-ass movie podcast, keeping the HMP. It was going to be called Headliner Movie Podcast for a hot second, like literally 11th hour we changed it.
I think that's I think you made the right call.
Yeah.
Was it going to be the same idea?
Yeah, the same idea was like just whoever the headliner of a movie was, we were going to use the actor from that. And like I even had like an idea, if you go back and look at the art for the first episode of HMP Volume 2, it's kind of done up in a tabloid style. And that was originally going to be my idea for each episode of Headliner Movie Podcast, was to have like, I mock up kind of a tabloid,
National
picture
Enquirer
of what they've been doing. Yeah, exactly.
With like Bat Boy in the corner or some shit.
Yeah, Weekly World News was definitely an inspiration for all of that. So that's what we were gonna do that, but at the last moment, somebody's like, "Hey, why don't you just call like half-ass movie podcast, just some stupid thing?" And I said it to the boys, and they were just like, "No, that's it."
Yeah, that's
what we're doing. I'm like,
that's the right call, I think.
Yeah, okay, yeah, and it's kind of worked out so far. The HMP keeps there, but I do have to look at elderly people and tell them, the name of my podcast has ass in it, and that's always just at least a little bit uncomfortable because they're like half-ass. Heavens me!
Lots of
isn't your grandfather a preacher? I'm like, yeah.
I mean, it's not too dissimilar from what we've done here, where like we're still the All American Spook Show podcast. We still do what we do, but now we intersplice in other stuff like Canon Fodder, where we talk about Canon films, and of course we do the shit for YouTube, lots of stuff over there. So like that leads us to what we're doing today, where we have our Cult Corner series, where like essentially we watch cult movies, or essentially it's just an excuse to watch maybe things that sometimes you wouldn't necessarily consider cult movies, but we just want to watch them because they're not horror related. That's
just to skate outside the regular horror boundaries and everything that's normally said.
Yeah, because we've watched some movies that have a cult feel, but you wouldn't necessarily think of as a cult film. Like like Goodfellas maybe. There's some others, right? Like there's some cultish aspects to it, but you wouldn't necessarily label it a cult film, right? So
what's odd? I've just recently kind of put together and stuff like that, is that in an odd way, whether they like it or not, some films can kind of, that were certainly not previously cult movies, can through time become cult movies again. And I don't know how often this has actually happened within cinema and stuff like that, especially if kind of fairly recent, because that's early 90s there. But there is a group of kids and stuff who at this point still haven't seen Goodfellas. Something like that goes on, where there's like they can go a good chunk of time here and never see it. I saw a TikTok video of like grown adults watching Goodfellas for the very first time, and I'm just like, how are you in your 30s and just now watching Goodfellas?
That's crazy. If anything,
It's insane to me.
I was on the other side of that with that one. I watched that one when I was probably too young to be watching it.
Exactly. That's what I said. I was like, man, when I was like 12, I was clamoring to watch, these R-rated movies. All seemed super hip, and like, Tarantino was just starting to hit at that point and stuff. Like, I wanted to see that stuff because it was cool, it was dangerous, and it's so weird that like, but even then in like 13, 14, 15, I was going back and watching like Easy Rider and all the other kind of 70s films and stuff like that. That stuff interested me, but like that's kids today, they don't have that kind of interest, I guess.
Well, I think that's what we got into recently, right, Smoke, when we did Scarface, and now the one that we're doing today is Blade Runner, and the reason these are kind of similar, I think, is that they probably cost, I know this one did, and we'll get into it, a pretty penny to make. But they did not make box office wise when they originally released. They were not hits.
True. Yeah. At that time, I mean, and in that way, it definitely is a cult film. Like when you think about these movies that were major Hollywood productions that cost a lot to make but didn't do well at the box office, and now are thought of as masterpieces.
Yeah, especially this
that definitely, I think, justifies it being a cult film.
Scarface too, but definitely this one. I think like now this one's like held up as it's regarded as like a neo-noir cinema, foundational cyberpunk, whatever labels, right? Like you apply that to Blade Runner.
And it's always been interesting, I think, that like in a weird, odd way, and maybe this is me pulling this out of my butt, but I think throughout the different cuts of Blade Runner throughout the years and everything, it's maybe in a weird, I don't like using the word, but I can't think of any other way, but artificially kind of boosted the profile of Blade Runner throughout the years and stuff of like, oh, we didn't quite get it right this time, so let's see what this revisionist thing is, and let's see what this next revisionist thing is. And the only person that's done that more is obviously Coppola with Apocalypse Now.
I'm not keen enough, and I think it's worth talking about maybe a little deeper here in just a second, but I'm not keen enough on all the different versions of this. I know there was, 6 or 7 different versions of this.
Yeah, it might be. And I don't even know. I know the first cut was 4 hours long.
Good Lord.
The first Ridley Scott cut. I don't think that's to my knowledge, I don't believe that there's been that cut released, right?
No, but here's the thing. Anytime I hear anyone say like, oh, our first cut was 4 hours, unless you're talking about like War and Peace, like literally like the Russian War and Peace, it's 8 fucking hours long. Anyone who says like my first cut of it was 4 hours long, that's an assembly cut time.
I was about to say that's work print. That's
exactly. They're throwing everything on the table to see what's there, so they will quickly know what to kind of junk out there and everything. But if they threw in everything, that's what they would have gotten. Then they were trimming down from there. But even at the same time, they knew a lot of that junk was going to end up going anyway. So I never buy any time where they go like, my first cut was 3 hours and 15 minutes. Fuck it wasn't.
No. That means nobody was there was no quality control. You were just throwing everything.
Your editor put it all together for you, and that's probably how those people work. Is like, hey, put it together for me, and then we'll come in, and then we'll start making cuts and stuff like that. Because I don't know that Ridley's sitting down in the editing room all day long for the first 3 months while you're dicking around to get a general first cut.
Yeah, I doubt it.
Unless you are also the editor yourself, such as George Romero,
or Steven Soderbergh for that case.
Yeah,
I mean, or oddly enough, Kevin Smith, like in his last several films, he's like edited like basically at night. Wow, he shoots during the day, edits at night, and then shows people the stuff the next day.
Yeah.
Where like I don't know which film it was, but one of his movies, he basically showed them a practically finished cut by the end of they're at their rap party essentially. So you can't do it.
I'm sure that finished cut wasn't 4 hours long.
It wasn't 4 hours long because he knew what he wanted more or less. Yeah. You don't have that kind of ego on you.
Now we have a movie that makes sense instead of this thing that just drones on for 4 hours.
Yeah, and
now speaking of the cuts too. Go ahead, Adam. This is
my thing was I came across. I was not an early comer to Blade Runner. I was very late on that. We were like a Star Wars family and everything, and like, what's the opposite of Star Wars? Blade Runner.
Yeah,
it's slow. It's not super exciting. The music is drony. It's like if that's not the vibe that you're in for, if you're in for a more swashbuckling adventure. You sure as shoot not going to find that in the land of Blade Runner or anything. So I came to it late, and like the first time I remember seeing it was like on a DVD, which by the way I still have like a Warner Brothers DVD. Looks like ass. Ooh, God. I mean, it's like looking through like a muddy lens. It's Bad News Bears all around.
You know, the only one that I still own to this day of this movie is it's the final cut, but it was like, I guess when the final cut came out on DVD. So it was '07. That's the one that I have. I never I still haven't rebought this one on Blu-ray or 4K or anything.
The OG with the narration and everything. Like I remember watching it, and that thankfully was the first one that I ended up seeing. No, actually, I think I attempted to watch the director's cut first, and with zero of the actual voiceover and stuff, if you could get lost, and I did get lost. And so, but when I went back and watched the original cut and everything with the absolutely atrocious Harrison Ford voiceover, it's bad, but it at least gives you some context and some clues as to what's kind of going on. So at least for a little dummy dumb like me that needed some, attention grabbing and stuff like that, that was a good thing. So I always suggest people watch at least the theatrical cut first. Just especially if you think you're going to fall asleep during this movie, because you may with that director's cut, because there's a lot of just okay. I mean,
and that's
move along.
And that
please.
Getting back to the original point, that's what I meant about not being keen on the different versions, because like I don't recall how many different versions I've seen of this, and I'm not thinking of like, well, this version had that, this version had this one left this out, this one added this in, so I'm not as well versed on this.
They're not supremely different. I think the only, and Smoke, you correct me if you know otherwise. The only big differences between the final cut that I can remember is like the unicorn stuff.
Yeah. Now I'm also not as well versed enough to go into each individual cut of it. I have this, which I don't know if we're doing video for people or not out there. Between us, we're doing
VHS
video.
Copy.
The Blade Runner VHS from Embassy Home Entertainment, right? Which is the theatrical version.
I was about to say, I would assume that's the original cut, right? Quote unquote.
Yeah, with like narration and all that stuff. And even this version, I've seen the final cut more times than I've seen this one, even though I saw this one quite a few times back in VHS rental days.
And I'll say too, I love this movie, but like I wouldn't necessarily say it's one of my favorite movies. So like it's one I haven't watched as many times. I've watched it a number of times, but like not as much as I've watched Star Wars or some other bigger movies that I've watched 1,000 times, right? So
yeah, and I think this was the first time for this one I watched the final cut, because I'd never actually seen that version before, and I did not feel it wildly different from anything that I'd seen. Like I said, from the director's cut, I think there's like 2 unicorn shots and maybe maybe a unicorn that Edward James Olmos puts down. I don't remember if that was in the original cut or not. But the unicorn stuff, I'm fairly certain was always in there, or was not always in there, but was in the final cut version rather.
What was when I was looking up some of the background stuff on this one, and apparently it was produced by the Ladd Company, Blade Runner Partnership, and Shaw Brothers. And that one stuck out. Shaw Brothers. I was like, wait a minute. So is that the connection with the random like
lettering, the languages and everything everywhere?
Yeah, like in the blimp
Chinese
that's flying across, and it's like a Japanese lady or whatever, like talking. Like, is that the connection to that stuff? Like, I don't know exactly. Is this in some future society? I love the faraway land of 2019 too. By the way, it's
funny. Because, especially at the time, and Smoke being the oldest of us here, probably tell us more about this than anyone else. But it was very much the idea that the Japanese were the ones that were poised to kind of take over a lot of industry and society and a whole bunch of stuff like that. So little do we know it was actually China, but but
the technology of the future is in Japan.
Yeah, exactly. Like all the cool, interesting, new, innovative stuff, everything was coming from Japan. So it seemed like those guys were going to be the new kind of it folks and everything.
Yeah, and if you look at the advertising, except for Coca-Cola, TDK were they from Japan? I mean, I feel kind of like they are, but I'm not 100% on that. Because there's TDK neon signs in there. There's Atari. Who actually?
Oh,
came
I
out with
saw the
Was that
Atari
Japan?
logo. I was like, there we go.
Yeah.
That makes sense for
That's
1982.
originally
but-
Japan.
I think Atari was
But
American.
the
'cause
odd
that's
thing about
Noah
all this
Bushnell.
that we're talking about is that they're Chinese. The Shaw Brothers, of course, Hong Kong.
Mhm.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
But I feel like the lettering and all. Now I'm no expert on Japanese language versus Chinese language, but I feel like all the characters you see are Japanese, right? It seems like
It seemed, yeah. Once again, I don't want to offend, like,
Yes,
shit,
yeah.
it's actually,
Yeah.
this different country or whatever.
What's
but
what's the email address again?
Yeah, it's allamericanspookshow@gmail.com. But yeah, that it felt kind of like maybe not out of place, just kind of odd to me. And that's when I saw the Shaw Brothers thing. I was like, well, maybe that's why there was something there
I mean,
to appeal.
but yeah, like I said, but they're Chinese, and then it seemed like it was
True,
Japanese.
yeah.
But it's like Adam was saying too, kind of like in the future, maybe these Japanese corporations have come in and taken over most of this.
Yeah,
corporate.
that was always the vibe that I got from
Yeah.
the 80s. Was they were like, oh man, Japanese are coming up with computers and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and that
I
stuff's
mean, they
going
were
to take
so
over
far
quick.
ahead of us, even in the video department. Remember that? Like, they had letterbox stuff on VHS at the time where we didn't, because people would be like, and Americans were like, what the hell is all this black bars at the top and bottom about?
Yeah.
But they had that going on over there, and they had Laserdisc, I think, was
all
more
the real
common there.
audio files.
Yeah.
Well,
Now,
getting back to
the other thing, though, real fast.
Go ahead.
The other thing, though, is that, like you said, the one that really kind of sticks out for me, and that is not really even the Shaw Brothers as much as it is the Ladd Company, and who I think is one of the most unsung heroes in all of cinema history, is Alan Ladd Jr. Alan Ladd Jr. is the reason that movies like this got off the ground. They're the reason that Star Wars got off the ground, Aliens got off the ground. And for a guy who admittedly says, I don't know nothing about science fiction, I just know that, he had faith in these guys for these projects and stuff like that. Alan Ladd Jr. put his ass on the line so many times, and it paid off so much for 20th Century Fox. It's absolutely ridiculous. But I think he is one of those unsung heroes, is Alan Ladd Jr.
Now, there was some connection to Warner Brothers. Well, now, obviously, Warner Brothers distributed this across the world, other than in Hong Kong. Shaw Brothers distributed it, but I'm assuming that Alan Ladd or something had something to do with Warner Brothers at this point.
The
Ladd Company thing.
He was a producer, so he was kind of around for like a little bit of everything. But I think the Ridley Scott was the biggest connection point with that, because he did Alien with Ridley Scott. So my guess is they were like, hey, let's bring Laddie along here and stuff like that. But he was always a guy that like kind of really let artists do their thing and didn't really question it, and was just like, hey, I've seen this guy's work. I know what he's capable of doing. Just let him do it.
And this is one that it got kicked around for a while too before it was actually made.
Oh yeah,
because this
the Philip K. Dick story goes all the way back to 1962, right?
Yeah, the novel, I think that actually came out in 68, but it could have been maybe sooner.
I think
than that.
I think he wrote it. What I was reading there, maybe he initially started on it in 62, and it might not have actually been.
It was serialized, wasn't it though?
Yeah, I think it was originally. I don't know when it became collected into one volume and put in a short story collection. Maybe that was 68.
Maybe, yeah, because it said what I saw, it was the 1968 novel "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sleep?" So that might have been, like you said, the serialized collection. It was in 68, but like apparently there were multiple rights issues, not rights, but like the film rights had passed through a couple of hands before it finally gets to Ridley Scott and that crew, and it was before even, I'm pretty sure it was before even Alien, that they had started some level of development on this.
Development
in mid to late 70s.
I'll say this: one of the fun bits about this movie is the character that is Hampton Fancher. Are you guys familiar with Hampton Fancher, the writer of this film?
Mm-hmm. No, not extremely familiar, but yeah, I read the name when I was looking.
By name, but I couldn't read off his.
Pick him out.
He's a very odd cat. Check out any of the interviews and stuff that he did with Blade Runner and everything. I think he's a very smart guy, but I also think he's a little bit of a nutball, which is what's kind of fun. He was so like his script was wildly changed from the movie that you're seeing right now. This was not necessarily the movie that Hampton Fancher wrote. He's not wildly pleased with the original Blade Runner. He didn't really care for it too awful much. One of the things that he kept dicking about was he wanted the movie to open with a guy standing over a boiling pot of soup. For whatever reason, he had this bug up his ass
about soup
for 40 years. To the point, like, and when you hear him in this conversation talking about this soup, this guy, like, I don't know what it is, but him, like he's standing over, just talking about, and he's standing over a bowl, a pot of soup, and he's looking at it, and I'm just like, and you're looking at it like, what the fuck are you even talking about? Cut to Blade Runner 2049, and what is motherfucking Dave Bautista doing in the first opening scene of that movie? He's standing over a fucking pot of soup, and he's a robot too, just like the robot in the thing. I'm telling you, this son of a bitch has been wanting to tell this boiling soup story for 40 years.
Well, if you think about like this one, there are a couple of scenes of Deckard, Harrison Ford's character, eating soup, right, or noodles or something, right? Remember?
Yeah. That, again with that Asian theme because of
like
the
he's at like the street
vendors.
Yeah. So there's definitely
I think they wouldn't let James Hung in this movie. I think you gotta have him in this film at some point.
Yeah.
They're just like it's an 80s movie.
Yeah,
we have an Asian man.
Yeah,
throw him in there, please. Thank you very much.
At least it was interesting, and it wasn't just some throwaway.
But it was cool too, and like he had a whole bunch of makeup and stuff on. He was like he had a whole thing going on.
There's a whole story with him, right? There was something going on with him, like so. At least there was something. There was some substance to it,
he's got a cool looking weird costume and everything, old man makeup because he wasn't that old back then.
Yeah.
He looks like that now, oddly enough.
A few other interesting notes to point out here. I found at least 2 different names for this movie. In Finland, there was an alternate title of Blade Runner Metropolis 2020.
That's not horrid.
No. And especially fast forward, there's Blade 2049 or Blade Runner 2049, right? And
yeah.
And I think there's going to be another one, right? I think I saw somewhere like Blade Runner 2099 or something like that.
Yeah, wasn't it another that same amount of years passed?
I think
between
that sounds about right.
30 years.
Yeah, I guess. Well, yeah. That'd be
listen, not for nothing.
No, that'd be 79, I guess. Anyway.
Yeah. But if it's not Villeneuve, I don't know that I care.
Yeah, I don't remember who the director attached to it was.
Yeah, I don't remember if there was what that was supposed to be, but I'm pretty sure I saw that somewhere. The other title that I saw was this for the original script title of this movie was Dangerous Days. Now, that's terrible.
Yes, I do know that.
That's terrible. Thank God they changed that. Now, apparently the Blade Runner thing had nothing to do with the original story. That came from another book. There was another book called The Blade Runner, where basically Ridley Scott or somebody, maybe the writer, I don't remember who, just liked the name. Like The Blade Runner, that's just a cool name. So like they just lifted that title and attached it to this, even though,
Well, I know there were many people involved with the making of this movie who had never even read the story, even after, beginning making the movie. And so I think Ridley Scott might have been one of those that hadn't read it.
Well, I still have not read it.
At the time of making it. But,
I still have not read it, but I didn't make the movie either.
Yeah.
So I got an excuse.
Well, I know
books. Fuck that.
Not really. Died in 1982, but he was able to watch, I think, like the first 20 minutes of the movie that had been edited at that time, and he enjoyed the feel of it, I guess, the look of it, the aesthetic of it.
There was something about that, where like originally he kind of pissed on the screenplay. Maybe it was that original version or one of the different mini versions. He didn't like it. And then eventually,
maybe if one of you sons of bitches would actually read the story, you would.
I think one of his last quotes was, "We need the soup," and then,
yeah.
Where's the soup? And then he died.
Corn chowder.
But anyways, this movie was released June 25th, 1982.
Oh, that's why I didn't see it. I was like 4 months old.
Yeah, well, I just turned 2, so yeah, that I had an excuse as not to be dragged.
You weren't seeing R-rated movies at that age? What's wrong with
quite.
you?
Although I'm pretty, we've talked about this before. I'm pretty sure I was 4 or 5 years old, and I got dragged to the theater to see one of the Chuck Norris. What was it? Missing in Action 2. I think
Which
was the
year?
one.
What year? 85. That came out in 85.
Yeah, so I was like 4 or 5 years old when this. I have a very vivid memory for some reason of being really young and going into a theater and seeing that movie.
Hey, listen, based upon where you grew up, that's practically a G movie.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. This
And
movie,
me being the old man of the group, I was 9, I think, when
Yeah,
Blade
there you
Runner
go,
came
yes,
out. Now, I
sir.
still didn't see it in the theater, but it wasn't too much longer until I did see it on HBO, Movie Channel, whatever it premiered on, one of those.
believe me, I have no claim to seeing anything that cool in theaters again for at least another like 5 to 8 years. So, past that point. So.
No, just real fast. I was just because I was like, that's an interesting question. Like, if you think about it, it's like, what would be the first like, oh my God, kind of like, for the age that I was at the time, that was really something cool. Because I just thought of mine, which was like when The Rock came out. We were like, I was a little bit too young for it. I was almost on the cusp. But the funny part is that ended up being the whole family. So like my little brother and little sister, everybody ended up going to see that movie. So, but it was like that's the gift of Sean Connery. I think it was just like, hey, James Bond is in this. We're gonna go watch this.
Mine was probably what I just said, but Smoke, yours was probably like one of the first 2 Faces of Death or something, right? In the theater.
Oh, in the theater? I don't. In the theater,
Does this even get played in the theater? I guess they did.
No, well, not certainly not in South Carolina anymore.
Well, at least not mainstream theaters, right? Probably at the.
No, I'm pretty sure
down at
those
the
were just
Flop
straight to
House.
video things. Yeah, I'm pretty sure those were straight to video. Maybe
Probably.
maybe I don't. Yeah, but
you
no,
you can get those at Walmart now. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I bought it.
Yeah, you can. Josh did.
I bought it because
That
I was
makes
like, I just have to buy it because I'm buying this from Walmart. That was
It's
the
a
only
weird
reason,
thought, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. They still edit music, right?
Yeah.
I think so.
Well, it's weird because you remember when not to go down a rabbit hole or anything, but I just remember when Walmart wouldn't carry certain music albums because of the Satanic Panic in the '80s or whatever. It was over that, it's whatever it was. Maybe it was King Diamond or I don't know, whatever. They wouldn't carry it but now they're carrying Faces of Death.
Go
The
figure.
complete set. That's pretty interesting.
Somebody picks it up and just goes, 3/4 of this is fake anyways. Fuck it.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like watching that movie. Now, Josh is onto something here as far as I didn't see it in the theater, but we watched that as a family, as a documentary. We rented it from the video store, and I was way too young to be watching it. We would watch it, like put it on, and like my mom and dad watching it and everything, and the aunt and uncles watching it.
I like the thought that this was your culture night. All right, kids.
Yeah. This is
We're gonna watch a
and
documentary.
Then I inflicted it on my friends, and I remember Saturday morning cartoon type thing where we were eating a bowl of cereal. I'm like, hey, I got this movie.
we got 2 choices, kids. We got Roger and Me, or
Faces of Death. Oh, Faces
or
of Death.
Faces of Death. Which one of these documentaries do you want to watch?
Yeah.
And then we didn't think anything about the guy. The guy's his name was Francis B. Gross.
Yeah.
But that didn't.
Maybe
it's not quite real.
like, maybe this is a fake thing. His name was Fakey, Dr. Fakey McFakerson.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, we're like, this is real.
This is just
This
straight up
guy's
some like.
He wouldn't call himself doctor if it wasn't real.
It's just straight up some garbage pail kid shit right there.
But speaking of sneaking into an R-rated movie, and it went through different times. There were times when they were not that strict, and I remember getting into R-rated movies before I was 18. But at some point, and really, it was after slasher movies in the later '80s became real big, and then we're cracking down on it and all this stuff. Then they started IDing us more so. But I remember trying to sneak into Child's Play in 1980, whatever. I mean, I wasn't that far off from. I was still like maybe 14, I guess. I was about 14,
Yeah.
So. But we tried to go as a group of a couple of his friends. They wouldn't let us in. I tried to sneak in after that. I paid for something else, but it was only the Cinema Twin. There's only 2 theater screens. So try sneaking into something where there's no hallway. You just walk in. There's a concession stand, doors to the movie theater 1 and doors to the movie theater 2 on the other side.
Now do you
I just got discombobulated. What are you talking about?
Now do you think, and Adam, you've worked in theaters more recently even than I have, do you think they give a rat's ass who goes into those movies now, like these days?
The only thing that they can have a problem with nowadays is just enough assigned seating and stuff. There's still plenty of places that are very assigned seating and
True.
First come first serve is actually a lot less these days.
Yeah.
But there are still a couple out there. I think with those theaters, listen, half the time I just didn't. I'm like, you know what? I don't care. I'd rather you just sit here and not bother me than me have to go and kick you out of here.
Yeah, exactly.
Until it's like the last part of the day, then you got to go.
That's the feeling I got. That's the vibe that I was thinking, that like most probably don't give a shit.
But there was a thing about Terrifier. You know how Terrifier wasn't supposed to, the Terrifier 2 wasn't supposed to necessarily come out in the theater, and they decided at the last minute, well, let's release it in theater, see what happens.
Limited run.
And they released it unrated, but the unrated thing, they didn't really. It wasn't like an NC-17, so they were letting kids into this thing because it's not rated.
You pose a good point there. Like, how can they really police the ones that are unrated?
I know it's a weird little. It's a little what do you call that?
It's a loophole or something.
Loophole, yeah, there is, because they didn't release it to MPAA to be rated, because otherwise it would be NC-17.
Yeah, I've never thought
or
about
what
that.
You know.
Like, at least if it's rated R, you can like hold them to some standard. Like, well, here's the rating. We can't do that. But if it's unrated, like, you can make an argument.
I mean, back in the '80s, they had they policed that stuff, because like Romero's even talked about this in his documentaries. He was adamant about releasing Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, and all those unrated, no matter what. But some newspapers wouldn't carry ads, and some theaters wouldn't carry the movies with it being unrated. So.
Yeah, I think that was one of the biggest problems with that for the longest time. And now that newspapers are kaputskis, no one gives a shit anymore. And they're just like, all right, we'll put unrated ones out there. We don't give a damn. And when they're like Terrifier and like literally make $800 million off of a $12 million budget, let them unrated boys in.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, speaking of ratings, this Blade Runner, back to that, it was rated R, total runtime of 1 hour and 57 minutes. On IMDb, it's listed as an action, drama, sci-fi thriller. So it's a little bit of everything there.
Action.
Yeah, well,
I mean, some people shoot some guns, I suppose.
Yeah,
there's some kicks.
It's definitely not action first. There's action very last. Way down at the end of the list, there's some there, but
there's a little bit of running.
It was filmed in Los Angeles, mostly in Burbank, California, and some of it was, I guess, some pickup shots, whatever. Some other things were done in London, England. March 9th through June 10th, and then again on July 6th and October 12th, I guess, single days. They're all in 1981 for a budget of $30 million. And now, as we currently sit here in the year of 2025, it has went on to a worldwide gross of $41.7 million. But during its original release in 1982, it only made $27.6 million.
Yeesh.
So it did not do well based on a $30 million budget, right?
Well, it's all the fact that Harrison Ford didn't read that narration well enough.
Yeah.
He'd have picked it up a little bit. I know he didn't want to do it. And he's just like, well, I'll tell you what, I'm just going to phone this shit in. Who gives a damn about anything? Yeah, it's, I don't know, robots or something. Who gives a shit? Where's my paycheck?
Robots. I think,
or androids. Right? There's another thing there. They call them replicants, which I think was a good change to make. Because in the actual Philip K. Dick story, they were called androids, or they were nicknamed Andes, which Andes.
They never say the word android, do they?
No, they don't say. No, they use replicant the whole time. They never say android. But that wasn't in the original story. It was androids.
I think you'll both like this. When we have it, I like to read it. I've got the top 10 in the box office.
Ooh.
The weekend that this came out. So this is the weekend of June 25th through the 27th of 1982. And just because this is so awesome, I'm going to go through the top 15.
Man, there's a couple of years here that you can certainly have those. We got 15 worth.
The summer of 82, this is one of them, brother. This is one of them. This is one of those moments. Number 15 in its 7th week, Conan the Barbarian.
Oh, yeah.
Number 14 in its 3rd week, Smoke, this is one of your top favorites, Grease 2.
Tron? No. I thought you were going to say Tron.
No. Grease 2. This is awesome. Number 13 in its 15th week. What is that? I'm not good at the mathing. That's 4 months, right? Give or take.
Oh, yeah.
It's been out. Porky's.
Man, Porky's is running in the top 15 after 4 months.
Top 13 after.
I got to diverge for one more second here, because that was one of the movies I was thinking about in my head that I did not see in the theater. But when you were talking about movies that you shouldn't have been watching at a certain time, I remember sneaking in. My parents were watching it. They rented it, and we knew it was a sex comedy type thing, or we knew it was whatever. It had nudity in it, right? And so I would sneak down and try and peek around the corner as they were watching it. Porky stuff. And that was probably.
I was thinking, like, my God, if you saw that in the theaters, you should not have been seeing that in the theaters in 1982.
No.
You were a little too young for that. Number 12, The Sword and the Sorcerer, was in its 10th week.
Man.
Number 11, Author. It was in its 2nd week.
Okay.
All right, now we got the top 10. The 1982 re-release of Bambi was in its 4th week, still in the top 10.
That was another one where they would just re-release a whole bunch of times.
Disney did a lot of that in the 80s, too.
Oh, yeah, they pulled it out in the vault again. Yeah.
Number 9 in its opening week, Megaforce.
Yeah, bitch.
Yeah.
Megaforce. Hell yeah.
Megaforce. Oh, sorry. It's
And
good
then-
soundtrack.
And then this is crazy. In its opening week, number 8, just number 8 in its opening week, The Thing.
Yeah, horrible release time for the thing. They really screwed up on that.
Yeah, June 25th. So the same day as Blade Runner.
That's
Thing.
because that's what people want is a nice cold movie in April.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 7 in its 4th week, Poltergeist. Number 6 in its 6th week, Annie.
Not a favorite of mine, but yeah.
Yeah.
That's not, a favorite of my sisters, probably.
Number 3, I think this is a favorite of some people. I'm sorry, number 5. What the hell? I'm jumping ahead. Number 5, a favorite of some people. Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan.
Oh yeah, I do like that.
Listen, it was a step up from the OG.
Yeah. That was in its 4th week. Number 4 in its 5th week, Rocky 3.
Yeah, love that one too.
Number 3,
On your lips.
Firefox in its 2nd week. Number 2, there's the big one for us. In its opening week, Blade Runner was number 2, made $6.1 million that opening weekend. Didn't go on to make much after that, but opening weekend did pretty well.
Harrison Ford, yeah.
Number 1 in the box office, it had a fucking juggernaut in front of it, so maybe that's some of the excuse for this sad return.
I think I know where this is going.
E.T., the extraterrestrial.
Yeah.
Was in its 3rd week and was just raking.
Which, by the way, okay, so that was in its 3rd week. It would only have, 60 more weeks? I forget how many it is. It was number 1 forever.
Yeah.
Then it would drop off for like a week or two, and then it would jump right back up to number 1 for a couple more weeks. It was when you look at like that release schedule, because for whatever reason, I went down that rabbit hole one day, and it was a wild thing to watch of just like, how can one movie do this?
And didn't they re-release it like the same year or 1 year later? They re-released it back in the theaters or something? Maybe it was because of the Oscar thing. Or
Probably.
whatever.
I mean, I'm just looking down through the domestic weekend list here. It didn't look like it went away for a while. Like it played. It played well into 1983 before it finally.
It was
the following summer. It looks like that's finally when it just went away.
It's kind of astounding of how big that movie was. Yeah. It just
also what happened with the release on home video of it? Because there was something about that. I remember it taking forever. It seemed like before it ever got released on home video.
Oh my God!
Listen, that was the smart thing that they used to do. Is to hold out on it for a while, and then when it came out, you were craving it because you haven't seen it in forever, and then you go out and purchase it. We let a movie out, and literally the day that I went to see Mickey 17. We knew what the Blu-ray cover was going to look like and when it was going to be on sale, which, by the way, it was like 2 months later.
Yeah.
What the fuck is the point of us going to the movies if this is how we're running our lives?
Well, I think a lot of people were saying that back then too, because we're talking about the rabbit hole. I just went down it to see. E.T. was number 1 for 6 straight weeks. It finally went down to number 2 in July on the weekend of July 23rd of '82. Do you know what movie was number 1?
Romancing the Stone.
No, that would be
later.
like, you know what? That makes sense. This makes a little less sense to me. The number 1 movie that knocked it off. By the way, it went right back to number 1 the following week. But the number 1 movie that weekend in July of '82, The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. It knocked E.T. off.
They saw Whorehouse, and they're just like, this
go.
is gonna be good. And then they watched it, and they were like, what the fuck was this?
Yeah, then E.T. immediately went back to number 1 right after that.
They're like, listen, show me that wrinkly alien again. I like him.
Oh my God, I saw that. That is awesome. The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. Coming up next on the Cult Corner.
So also, while we were talking about this, I just looked up that thing about the home video release, and I remember it being longer than usual, even longer than what we were talking about, where it was like could be a year before something comes out. No, the first home video release of E.T. was 1988.
Yeah,
Wow.
I remember that because I remember that being a massive fucking deal when it came out on VHS. Like it was like you whatever day it was, you got to go this day, and finally you can own a copy of E.T. And it was like,
that's an interesting thing because like I said, I was a zygote in 1982, or just fresh out the box here. But I remember at about that time, it probably would have been about that time, getting that on VHS. So that's a wild idea that it was just coming out on VHS when I first had gotten it. That's crazy.
I remember we went to the fucking grocery store and we bought that on VHS. Like, they had a huge display of E.T.
Yeah.
And that's where we
and
bought
it probably
at.
cost what? Probably was $30 then. I mean, VHS started out really high. Of course,
I was only give or take 8 years old, so I have no recollection of how much it is. I didn't care. I just wanted ET. But we got it. I remember buying it at a grocery store because even then I thought it was weird that it was at a grocery store. But that's how big it was. Like, this is a big fucking deal. Every place that probably sold things that could get their hands on copies of that probably sold it.
When I was working at a Harris Teeter, that's when episode 1 came out. We sold that on VHS. That's how big that movie was. It's like sometimes there's movies that are big enough that where grocery stores will just be like, fuck it, we're selling this movie.
Right next to the eggs, there's the fucking ET display.
Yep.
But do y'all also remember home video stores inside grocery stores?
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I do. I remember there used to be a Kroger that was in a nearby city where I live that not only did they have a video store in there that you could rent movies, but you could rent the VCRs and shit.
Oh yeah,
that's going way back.
Ours also sold appliances and stuff like that, so you could also get a VCR right across the way, as you might imagine.
Hurry, hurry, step right this way, folks, for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, taste-tempting candies of finest quality. Enjoy popcorn, exploded into tender, delicious, crispy bites of crunchy goodness. Enjoy the tops in cool, refreshing soft drinks. If you want to enjoy some refreshments, this is your opportunity. There will now be a short intermission.
Well, yeah, going back to my old ass age, but the first video store I remember in Orangeburg was it was Appliance City, because he sold and repaired appliances. Then, as VHS, or in beta, really first was coming along, he was an entrepreneur and he jumped right on that. So he was still called Appliance City, but on top of selling and repairing appliances, he also rented VHS and VHS.
Is that the place?
And Laserdiscs and Laserdisc decks.
Is that the place that you told us a story years ago, or at some point about how y'all got the CED and then you stuck the CED?
Yes. Should I briefly go through that?
Yes. I think Adam probably hasn't heard this story. It's well worth it.
Yeah, so that was Appliance City, which we didn't have a VCR, Betamax, anything at the time. But this new rental stuff is coming in, so my dad wanted to check it out. So we go and we rent a CED player, and he lets us rent some movies, and he rents some movies. I think I remember renting Revenge of the Ninja. I think it was one of the earliest ones. That was probably in 83, 84, something like that. But he rented some sort of, it's Penthouse, this or that or something, whatever it was.
Of course.
And then we also rented some family movies to watch, right?
That's awesome that existed on CED.
Yeah, it was on CED. It was like Penthouse, whatever.
Yeah.
So it was just it wasn't it wasn't like hardcore porn we're talking about here. It was like just somebody stripping down.
Ladies are moving on the beach. Yeah.
yeah. But he rented it, and he didn't bother sticking this thing and hiding it somewhere in his room or anything like that. But, I mean, he had it with our other discs sitting there that we had rented, and we had a family movie to watch on it. So yeah, me and my cousin, we ferret these things out even when they were hidden. We ferret out magazines and all this stuff. But with it being right there in the open, we get out of school, get dropped off at home. It's just us there. Of course, what are we going to do? But we're not the most tech savvy. We knew what you got to do. You slide this thing in there, right? And you pull the sleeve out.
Kids, just slide it right in.
That's right. That's what. No pun intended. I mean, maybe it was intended, but anyway. Yeah. We slide it in. You pull it out.
I'm telling you, CED was the most perverted of all the tape formats.
And this was the description, the official video from RCA Select Division. This is how you do it. You put the disc in,
pull it out,
slide it out.
And
you get it a little bit drunk first.
Don't be.
But yeah, we did it. We got it in there. We pulled it out, the sleeve, and the disc stayed in there. And so we started watching it, right? We watched some of it, all right, somebody's going to be coming home from work here soon, so we better take it out. So we put the sleeve in.
No. You want to do the opposite if somebody's coming home.
Yeah.
That's right.
Put it away.
Well, we put it in.
Generally.
We put it in anyways, right? The sleeve, that is. And we pulled it out. And we assumed that the disc came out in the sleeve like it was supposed to.
Oh no.
Yes, unbeknownst to us, though, the disc stayed in the machine, and we put the sleeve down where it was before, and then that night we're watching the family movie that we all rented. So Dad puts the disc in there of the family movie, and pulls the disc out, and all of a sudden, Penthouse is playing. And me and my cousin, who was also, we lived right. It was my dad's, brother's son and everything. He lived right next to us. We're all in there watching the family movie, right? And so we look at each other instantly, like, what is that? What is this?
This is supposed to be the family. This is supposed to be the Family Time documentary of Faces of Death. What the hell is this?
Yeah, I know. What the hell? What is this playing? So he puts the sleeve in there. He's trying to figure out what the hell's going on. I put this movie in, but this other movie's playing. So he puts the sleeve in. Now, somehow or other, both discs come out in the one sleeve. Basically, long story short, we thought we had taken the disc out, but apparently we didn't insert the sleeve enough to get the disc out with it. So the disc stayed in there. Then he puts the other one in. Now both discs are in the machine.
Oh my god!
Playing the one that's on the bottom, I guess, which was the the Penthouse one.
Of course.
But him not knowing that two discs are in there, he puts the sleeve in to pull them out. Both of them come out. Now he's trying to get. He figures out what's going on because the sleeve is now it's heavy because it's got two discs in it. And there's no disc in the other sleeve. So now he's trying to finagle this thing to get the disc out, and he breaks both discs.
Oh,
good Lord!
And of course,
it's almost as if CED is horribly designed and everything.
Fucking
yeah, they're basically vinyl records.
Yeah, I was about to say we should add. There should be an addendum here. What is a CED? It's basically a vinyl record, kind of inside of like a hard shell case. Think of it like a massive floppy disk.
If you'd like to see a big video on this, I actually did a reaction on my YouTube channel on Half-Ass Movie Podcast. Just look that up on the YouTube there. And Linus Tech Tips did a whole episode about CEDs and stuff. So I did a reaction video on that. So if you're curious about that, go check out HMP's YouTube page there and everything. And I have fun.
And if this were video right now, you'd see I'm holding up an Alien CED right now. Although I have
nice Ridley Scott tie in there.
I have, there you go. And I have no way of playing it, but I have it in my hand.
I like that. I like that the shell is blue because most of the ones I've seen are like white.
I think that must have been because of that, right?
A lot of these
maybe some movies had special colors.
Maybe, but a lot of these,
or
a lot of these movies too, especially the longer ones, they'd have two of these things. Like there would be to play the whole movie, you needed two CEDs. This one was this one's actually just one. Capacitance electronic disc system.
Yes,
what it stands for.
Yeah. And I still have one of those, but it doesn't work. I have a CED player, but unfortunately, those things have a stylus inside, like a turntable,
like a record. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure that's all worn out.
They go through all that kind of cool technical stuff and how it all works and stuff. So if you've never heard of that,
go check that video out to get the full explanation.
Yeah.
But
good stuff.
Yeah. The funny thing is too, not to go too much further on CED. I don't think the quality was all that great either, right? Like.
Oh no.
It didn't look.
When it comes to
when you go back
renting
and look at it, it didn't look all that much better than VHS. You would think it would, but it didn't really.
No, and I forget. I think it might have the same amount of scan lines. If it has any more, it's not that much.
Yeah.
I think it was whatever VHS scan lines is. I can't remember now off the top of my head, but it wasn't that much more or about the same. But one thing that sucked about them was when they rented them, because it's like a turntable, they get scratched.
Yeah.
I mean, so you get to a point and it starts skipping. Not only like a turntable where the audio skips, the video is skipping, and we would go up to the thing and hit it like, bam, and then it makes the stylus jump over to the next.
And I'm
scene
sure
and
everybody
maybe
did that. And just fuck them all up. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all not a good rental. That doesn't hold up to rentals so very well.
A couple more things to point out about Blade Runner to get off that tangent and back to the subject. It actually had 2 Oscar nominations, the following year, 1983. It didn't win either. It was nominated for Best Art Direction, and it lost to Gandhi.
Yeah, everything lost to Gandhi that year.
And it was nominated for Best Visual Effects, and it lost to E.T.
Yeah.
So no shock there, I guess.
Well, it's come on, the E.T. stuff's freaking great.
Smoke,
we've talked about this before. I really wish that E.T. was supposed to be a horror movie originally.
You could see that.
Yeah, I'd heard something about that.
So that would have been an interesting thing to see. And some people are pretty scared, including Tiana, my wife. She doesn't like. I mean, she'll watch it. She's not that scared of it, but as a kid and everything, the whole
Well, I could see
seeing of
that.
ET and his neck extending and all this stuff would freak her out. You know?
His freakish love of Reese's Pieces, all these things just scare the fuck out of you. Anybody want to mention anything about the soundtrack before we move on here? By Vangelis?
Oh yeah, Vangelis. Yeah, yes. I mean, I personally love it because I love that it's got that whole. It ties into the whole neo noir style. You know, like it's got that futuristic because it's synth also, but it's also sounds like it's a little bit older. I don't know. It's a little bit of jazz in there too. So I mean, it's very interesting soundtrack to me. Like I can just one that I can listen to outside the movie. That's not always the case.
Yeah, it's grown on me over the years. It is mellow. It's almost too mellow sometimes. But it does definitely capture that kind of, noir feel with that feeling of, kind of that futuristic sort of thing. It is that great like vibe right there down the middle and everything of kind of the old and the new, and certainly new of the time of the 80s and stuff with your synthy kind of, vibes and all that kind of good stuff. It really good. Although, like I said, it's almost too good at lulling you at some moments, but it is familiar enough into where, while it may not be like a John Williams type of thing, it is kind of like subtle, like the Alien theme is subtle. It's like you hear it, like what it is and stuff like that.
Yep.
But it's not smashing you over the head with the bombasticness of it all.
Yeah, just like it's kind of complimentary to me a little bit on of Taxi Driver. That
I had that thought, but I didn't put it out of my face, and I'm so glad you said it. But yeah, it's very Taxi Driver, and like you said, that kind of neo-noir jazzy kind of lo-fi sort of thing.
It's funny, it kind of needs to. It does what it needs to do for this movie, but it's not like one you're going to be whistling to yourself later on.
No, you don't go. You're not going out. Blade Runner, Blade Runner.
Maybe that's why it only made $27.6 million or whatever the hell when it came out.
No snappy numbers.
It didn't have that.
I don't know. It's like it's the eye of the Blade Runner.
No.
Dawkins
does the theme for Blade Runner.
You would have had to wait a few
But it is one that grew on me. Like I never listened to. I mean, I loved the soundtrack within the movie when I was younger, but it was not one that I would have seeked out to buy separately. But it wasn't until later, I mean, I'm talking about. I mean, it's been 10 or more years now, but that I listened to it separately outside of the movie and enjoyed it. I could see where you wouldn't, though. I could see where some people would think it needs to be tied to the movie because it is very subtle. But yeah, it's definitely grown on me now to where I can enjoy it outside of the movie itself.
Well, this movie, in soundtrack included, but also the movie itself was in a weird way like Dark Side of the Moon. Like if you don't really, the hits from Dark Side of the Moon, but you always think of like, oh, what the album is and stuff like that. And it's very different. And you do have to be in a particular mindset and the ability to kind of sit down and enjoy that as a piece and everything. And Blade Runner is certainly of that same kind of thing of like, you need to sit down and kind of live in this world and be with these characters and everything. And that's where it comes from in an odd way. For a movie that's a detective movie, in a strange way, it's also a hangout movie in an odd way, because we get up to all of these over factions where we're with Pris and stuff, and we're out with there, and we're kind of with the toys and all this kind of stuff. So you go and you see a little bit of people over here and a little bit of people over there, and like for me, it's probably it was a lot tougher to try to grasp all that and put it together when I was younger and stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It made so much. I like it more and more as I get older because I've been able to actually appreciate what I'm seeing and stuff like that. Yeah. And I also do credit the original cut with this as sad as it is voiceover there to kind of explain a little bit and fill in some of the gaps that you may need, especially if you're that first time watcher.
True, yeah. I agree 100% with that, and I think that you should watch it first, the theatrical cut first, if you've never seen it, and then maybe go to the final cut or whatever. I mean, if you've never seen it, definitely do it that way, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's very much an aesthetics-driven movie, and I love aesthetics whatever it is, if it fits that type of movie or that style, and this is that type of thing. It's like the neo-noir stuff is in there, set in this futuristic cyberpunk atmosphere, and you could turn the sound off on this movie and watch it based on the aesthetics of it, I guess, or you could take a synthwave soundtrack or a synthwave album or whatever album or electronic album, anything, put it on and just have the movie playing in the background.
Oh,
and enjoy it that way.
I knew 80s dance clubs that would have Blade Runner on like a projector in the background while just the music and stuff is going on, because you can just look at that at any time and go like, shit.
Yeah. True.
What do we think of Harrison Ford in this one? I mean, because like as this comes out, he's fresh off of what, Empire Strikes Back, right? And
81.
obviously the
Right,
first Star Wars, and then Empire Strikes Back, and then right before this was Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, and then he's about to do Return of the Jedi the next year after this. Right?
I think he's okay. When we consider all of those surrounding movies, I think he's better in all of those movies, but I think those characters are written better than Deckard is written, because Deckard is written to kind of, I don't want to say be a blank slate per se, but like he's a lot more mysterious and stuff. You know, your Han Solo's playing to the bleachers. You know, your Indiana Jones is entertaining to everybody. So all that kind of stuff. And again, many of those are also repeat characters and stuff for him as well. So he's also very comfortable in their shoes.
Everything you're saying is one of the reasons he took the role.
Yeah,
or wanted to be in the role.
Yeah,
because it was so much different.
Something different. But at the same time, too, it's like, sorry, Harrison, but if you're gonna sleepwalk through the role, not that he like sleepwalk through this one, but like you can kind of see like things later on in his career and stuff like that, where it's just like he's clearly like, I just want to get.
He's one of those actors to me. You can always tell when he gives a shit.
Yeah.
You know, and everything he does, like he cares about this one, but not so much this one. You know, you can.
Yeah,
just
I mean,
tell
like, listen, you saw it. You saw it in Brave New World, because you could tell what scenes were the reshoots, because they were the scenes that it looked like Harrison Ford did not care, because there were moments in that movie where Harrison Ford does care, and I promise you, those were the original shoots. He cared on those, but when they said come back, you could tell he's like, I don't want to do this.
I've already moved on.
Like, oh, this is dumb. Well, like, we have to shoot this. Whatever. I'll do it. I'll be like, again, like the voiceover in Blade Runner. He's like, I'll be there if I got to, but you're getting the bare minimum out of me.
Listen to this list of people that they wanted to be, at one point or another, wanted to be Deckard in this movie. Okay, apparently it was written for Robert Mitchum. That's who he had in mind when he wrote it, the part.
I could see that. Robert Mitchum's too old at this point, even. But I mean, he certainly would have been a classic action noir actor that we could put in this, which at the end of the day kind of would have been rad.
There was I'm about to read all the names, but the one that was the most serious, it sounded like it was actually about to go down before it didn't, was Dustin Hopkins. Like they had went pretty far
Dustin
along.
Hoffman?
No, what did I say? Yeah, okay, yeah. Dustin Hoffman, I'm sorry. Misread.
Yeah.
Misread my own writing.
Oh, I haven't heard of him before.
Yeah. Who is this? Who is this unknown
He's the brother of Anthony Hopkins' brother. You know.
You ever see The Fly?
Yeah. So apparently it went pretty close to like him actually doing it, and then like right pretty close to when they were about to do it, he pulled out because of creative difference. You know, the old line. So I
definitely don't see that personally myself. Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah. Yeah.
It would have been a very different performance overall. You would have gotten a different feel from Deckard. I feel like he probably would have been more emotional. And I don't think you would be like at any point questioning whether or not he's a replicant.
Yeah. Now, this list to me just reads it's like every big fucking name of the time.
Yeah.
Like
and they just would get one that sticks. Finally get one that sticks.
Let's just see
here's
which
the Ford
one.
stuff.
So here's the names. Gene Hackman.
Okay, yeah, sure. Put Gene Hackman in.
Sean Connery.
No, Sean Connery. Honestly, the more I think about Gene Hackman in a weird kind of way, I kind of want to see that.
Oh, he's fully capable of it, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, Popeye Doyle in space.
Yeah.
Come on, you know.
Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, big enough name at the time, but he wouldn't have done. He'd have done terrible in this. This is not a movie for him.
Yeah, it depends on what version would have showed up. Like,
and I'm wondering if not that he would have done this one, but any rate, he was working on Shining right at that time. Is probably one of the reasons why he didn't.
Give or take, yeah, because this was early '81 when they filmed it. So yeah.
I'm riding high on the cocaine horse there.
Paul Newman.
Too big for this. There's no chance. I mean, come on now. And again, though, I do kind of like the idea of Paul Newman noir in space. It's kind of sexy. I kind of like the idea. It's one. Maybe I like it because it could never happen at this point. But like the idea of it being out there, like I don't know, it's either going to be gloriously good or awful and terrible. I kind of want to see it either way.
Clint Eastwood.
Oh yeah. That could like a very kind of play Misty for me vibe.
Yeah.
This would have been
in
completely,
theater and stuff like that.
different. Tommy Lee Jones.
No, because Tommy Lee Jones doesn't look like he's ever touched a piece of technology in his entire life. I don't know that man's turned on a television set in his 88 years on this planet.
Here, this would have been awesome, but for not for good reasons. Arnold Schwarzenegger.
A replicant is a robot that goes around and he's like,
Where's he at? Where's he at on the timeline here? Obviously, Conan the Barbarian. We just read it. It was out at the same time. So this is before Terminator, right? Obviously, in his timeline.
But not too long before Terminator. Only 2 years before Terminator, really.
Yeah. So maybe he would not have done Terminator because it's too close with the robots. So maybe we don't get Terminator if he'd done that.
Honestly, that's not bad. Or OJ becomes the Terminator.
Yeah,
because he was up for that role.
This name is just like what the fuck, but then on some level it kind of makes sense because of what he was in. Peter Falk.
It turns out I'm a bit of a space cop. But the funny thing about this Tyrell fella is I don't know that he knows what he's doing.
Yeah. I mean, considering he's coming out of the Columbo years here, maybe that's why it just wasn't, but who knows?
He had to be 88 years old.
Honestly, maybe, but I don't know. He might have been one of those dudes that looked older than he was, though.
Yeah, you're probably right. Forever. We thought he was 60 when he was 32.
Yeah, exactly.
He pulled a John Hurt on us.
3 more names, all awesome in their own ways. Nick Nolte.
Oh, damn it.
Crazy Nick Nolte. Al Pacino.
I would have loved to see an Al Pacino version of Blade Runner.
This is around Scarface time, right? So
yeah. So 1 year. Well, Scarface came out 1 year later.
Yeah, so like that would have been nuts.
Yeah, that'd be also awesome if Deckard had a Cuban accent.
And this is funny since, and correct me if I'm wrong, if he was not in this, The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. Burt Reynolds, wasn't he in that?
I think
so. Best Little Whorehouse in Texas.
Yeah, he was the last name, Burt Reynolds. Can you imagine Burt Reynolds?
Like almost all of these people though had something going on around the time of.
And I think that's what this list is. You know how they put these lists together when you see them. It's just every big A-list actor of the time.
Yeah, you would of course go to all of these people because they are draws in Hollywood. Yes,
exactly. But Dustin Hoffman apparently was the one that
Deckard as played by Meryl Streep.
Oh, and there was one over for Pris, which went to Daryl Hannah. Debbie Harry.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, I can see that.
That one was apparently close or considered.
Maybe.
Videodrome?
Maybe they made the wrong choice.
Yeah. I mean, she's not.
Maybe they made that like she's okay. She's okay, but like of all the people in this, she's probably the least. I would say
it would have been different. That's for sure.
Wasn't
it would have been played.
Wasn't she in Videodrome, which was also
she was great in Videodrome.
Yeah. See, so that might be the reason why she couldn't do it. Maybe she was doing Videodrome
roughly around the same time, right?
Yeah.
What was that? Videodrome was 83. 83. Yeah. So, yeah. That's all I had. I thought that was interesting, though. All these names. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Could you imagine? This is Conan days. Arnold here. This is before he had any kind of quote unquote serious chops here.
The accent is as thick as it ever was at this point.
Oh yeah, I mean one of the movies that I can't remember what I tried to get it on, if it was on Cold Corner or if it was on Crapster Piece, but what the hell is the Hercules in New York?
Yeah.
You ever seen that, Adam?
Oh yeah.
Because there's a cut out there with his voice, which is barely intelligible at that point in time, and then the cut where they dub somebody else's voice on top of it.
It's like I love it when they don't sound like they come out of this person at all.
Yes, yeah.
It's so good where it's just like, no, that is not what this person. Why would you, as the voiceover artist, go like you? There's no way you're looking at the person's voice that you're doing, is it?
Yeah, it was
Is
like
that what you think this person sounds
That's the one.
like?
If I remember, it was just straight up like it doesn't look anything close. Right?
Yeah, the
like,
voice doesn't look like it's coming out of his mouth at all. Yeah.
Well, come here, young lady. You know that guy.
yeah. It's bad. It's terrible.
I will save thee.
It makes it more hilarious that way. I mean, you know,
Sounds like
I actually prefer
Principal
watching the
Skinner.
dubbed version.
Slim Pickens is Conan the Barbarian.
I would definitely see that. Definitely see that.
You know, there's a blurb interview or something out there with Schwarzenegger. I haven't seen the original interview. I just know there's a synthwave song called Schwarzenegger, and I think the band's called Quixotic or something like that. But in there, he's talking about they couldn't pronounce my name. They called me Schwarzenschnitzel, and I don't know why Schwarzenschnitzel. Now every time I see Schwarzenegger, I think of that when he's talking about that in that interview, Schwarzenschnitzel. So
All I can think of is when he was one time Schwarzenegger was on Arsenio Hall, and you remember how like Arsenio would occasionally like show you this side of the audience that likes X, Y, or Z or whatever.
Yeah.
So he had this bit of this section of the audience can spell Schwarzenegger but can't spell Arnold, and everybody was just like, yeah. Yes. Or whatever the fuck for whatever reason whenever I think of Schwarzenegger, I always think of those people that clapped for we could spell Schwarzenegger but we can't spell Arnold.
No, I only think of there was that thrash metal band called Austrian Death Machine.
Oh yeah.
All of their albums
sings like
yeah, well, all of their albums are just like Schwarzenegger movies, and then the titles on the are just like lines he would say. Like the song is called "Get to the Chopper," and then and then the next song sounds exactly the same.
Singer sings like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
Well, of course he does.
Get to the chopper. All right. Well,
I wonder that "Get to the Chopper" says "Get to the Chopper" for 95% of the song. That's just a guess.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, we'll leave it there. I think that's enough about Blade Runner. We end on Austrian Death Machine.
Happens.
Well, except one thing I'll add in here is that it's not so much a Harrison Ford movie as it is a Rutger Hauer movie.
Yeah,
we didn't even touch on Rutger Hauer. Let's do that real fast.
Yeah, he was fucking phenomenal in this movie. I think he even said, I think like one of his late interviews or something, like that's my one, that's my best.
Yeah.
I think that it's very true. Well, I want to dispel one thing because you hear people talk about this a lot, and they're half right. So the legend that you hear from a lot of people is that, you know, obviously he's got his big kind of speech there, the Tears in the Rain speech at the end, right? Well, the Tears in the Rain was not that specific line was not in the script itself. A lot of people assume or falsely report that like he ad-libbed that on the day. Was not on the day. It was actually at a table reading and stuff. But they mentioned, because he was reading it as they were doing, and adds in that little part at the end. And the report, I forget who said it, but they were like, they looked over, and Rutger Hauer just had this look on his face like, I knew I shouldn't have done that, but I did it anyway. Yeah. I don't care, and it's really fucking cool, right? And everybody was like, yeah, it kind of is.
Yeah.
And they threw that in there, and like there was a lot of like weird and interesting choices. Like he showed up with that hair. That was not their choice at all. Rutger Hauer showed up with that bleach blonde hair, and they were like, fuck, I guess we have to deal with this. That was him. Yeah. That was not. I can't believe Ridley Scott allowed it, quite frankly, because he's a guy who, you know, has control over a lot of things, and definitely, you know, has an idea. Like this movie itself and a lot of Ridley movies, he storyboards this stuff himself. Like he's an amazingly good artist and whatnot. So I can't believe that he, you know, let somebody like Rutger come in and kind of play a little around like he did as much.
There might be something that I saw with the words of Philip K. Dick, you know, when he was kind of giving his stamp of approval on the project. I guess the little bit that he saw before he passed, that he liked the look of Rutger Hauer.
Yeah.
And he was like, that you've nailed that part of what I wrote. That right there is like what I envisioned in my mind. He looks like, acts like, everything. So maybe that's why he let it fly. Who knows?
Yeah. But listen, at the end of the day, all good choices were made with this and everything, and like it is, what a great iconic way to kind of end that movie and stuff like that. And and you're right, Rucker Hauer, it is kind of his movie at the end of the day. Here, he gets all the cool lines and stuff like that. Deckard just kind of sits back and enjoys the ride.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was definitely billed as a Harrison Ford movie, but I just think that Rucker Hauer pretty much steals it, right?
Well, he's the one who's
Absolutely.
got the interesting thing here because it's somebody who's coming to grips with the fact that he is only going to be around for a short amount of time here and everything. So it's like, why would he care about any of these things? It's like, you didn't care enough to make me to where I can last beyond any short amount of time here. Why should I care about any of this other stuff? And
Yeah.
and you understand his situation because you're like, yeah, I could see that.
Now, the final cut, we do have spoilers on this, so I will throw that out there since we haven't spoiled a whole ton of shit so far. The end of the movie, I don't know if this was a final cut thing or something, but I saw where supposedly there was a happy ending and then a sad ending or something here. So I assume what we saw was the happy ending, right? Where Roy Batty or whatever she saves Deckard, right? Like that's kind of like his human moment, so to speak. Like I'm above the fray. He grabs him, saves him, then immediately dies or ages out, whatever the fuck happens to a replicant, right? I'd like to know what the other ending was. If there's a sad ending, what happened there? I don't know what the different versions. Like
I can't comment on that myself either because I haven't seen.
There was
I haven't watched any of them besides the final cut in a long time now.
Yeah, there's.
What's a turd about all of this? So the first time I owned Blade Runner, get this, was on HD DVD, right?
Oh yeah,
that's right. But
that's almost as obscure as CED is now, right?
It is. It's true. Man, we are hitting all the obscure formats
right.
this episode. But I had it on HD DVD, and one of the cool things that Warner Brothers did when they were just like, "Listen, man, we're giving up the rights on HD DVD. Everything's going over to Blu-ray." If you sent in your copy, they sent you back a Blu-ray version of that. So I did that with like all the Warner Brothers titles that I had, and I had a decent amount of those. And Blade Runner was in that had all of the things and all the extra features and all that kind of good stuff. And like a handful of DVDs somewhere, they're kind of lost. I think they're they're in storage. They got put in a box somewhere because I'm missing that and like Jaws in my 4K Steelbook and like a Charlie Chaplin movie. There's a handful of things in there somewhere, but I was like, I had to try to find. So I ended up renting the final cut for this just because I was like, I need to watch it. And I tried to watch it on the director's cut on regular DVD. I'm like, nope, I will pay $4 for a rental for 4K because my God, I couldn't do it, brother.
Yeah.
It was bad. I'm sorry, I've been going on.
Yeah. No, I'd like to know what the differences in these endings.
Want to see the
what
4
I
hour
remember
cut.
from seeing all of them, they are not vastly different. The biggest difference is obviously taking away of the narration. I think the other ones are just a couple of different cuts, and mostly that has to do with the unicorn.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. That's the last little tidbit we'll end on. Ratings. Adam, you're the guest, so we'll let you go first. What are your final thoughts on Blade Runner? And what's your star rating? Now we go 0 through 5 here, and we're comparing this to our other Cult Corner flicks. So that level of things you're comparing it to, not to Reanimator. So
listen, I enjoyed this movie more as the years go by. The oddest thing I think ever is that Blade Runner 2049 actually made me appreciate Blade Runner more. I actually going back and watching this movie after watching Blade Runner 2049 really kind of made me go back and look at this movie again with different eyes and stuff like that. And I think it does me better. And while it's not that kind of same level that you have with like a Star Wars or something like that, I think it is a science fiction thing, and especially if you're into noir at any level, a movie that you need to see at some point just to at least tick it off a bucket list. It may not be everybody's bag, and like I said, because it's a little bit slower, it's a little bit more methodical and stuff like that. But if you're able to kind of jump on board for what the movie is giving you and ride that wave on in, you'll probably be so at least hopefully pleased enough with it to once you get to the baddie speech at the end, I think that's enough of a really good button that it'll leave you just satisfied enough. Oh, B minus.
So what does that equate to?
Oh wait, we're going stars.
We're 0 through 5 stars. Yeah, I was going to say
0
that's
through
about
5.
4 or something.
I'm going. Well, I'll go 3.5.
Okay, fair enough. Smoke, what do you say?
Oh yeah, this is one that has, like Adam had mentioned, grown more over the years for me. I saw it sometime back in '80, I don't know, 4 maybe, whenever it kind of came on HBO or Movie Channel or whatever. After the theatrical run, so probably was about maybe '84. And I didn't appreciate it that much then because at that point I was 11 years old, man.
Yeah.
So yeah,
11-year-old's not gonna like this.
Yeah. It's gonna be. I did appreciate the look of it and the flying cars and the cityscapes and that type of thing, but yeah, it was a little too slow maybe for me that point in time. So it took me a little while before I got back to it, and then when I did a little bit later on down the road, probably around 90, I don't know, 90, 91, something like that.
Now, what age did you decide to start dressing like Edward James Olmos, like as a cop pimp in this movie? When did you decide to start dressing like that?
That was at least 86.
That was about 1995. No.
Yeah,
that's right.
No, I definitely appreciated later on the film noir, neo-noir style of it. When I came back to it later in the 90s, about 91, 92 or so, I appreciated a little bit more. It still felt like it was maybe a little slow, but I liked it better overall than that first watch. And then now it's been a number of times that I've seen it over the years, and it does get better with me kind of with each viewing. And I have not gone back though to watch any of the other cuts. Like I said, I've watched the final cut since it came out. That's the only cut I've been watching. I need to go back and just revisit that narrated version just to see, just to watch it again.
You'll get 5 minutes in and you'll be like, well, when I went over here and the skin jobs, the people that do like this and I'm like, good God, you don't
bad,
care.
Huh?
I saw something where like it was like obviously they did that later on, and it was like it was kind of like what you said earlier, Adam, where they had to drag him back to do the other movie to do these other parts. It was the same thing there. Where like, you still owe us this, son of a bitch. So he came back and did the narration and half-assed it because he didn't care.
No, yeah, he freely admits
probably
that.
not worth going back.
Yeah, he admits it. He admits that. Yeah, oh yeah, I totally did that. I came in and I did it bad on purpose, thinking they wouldn't use it, and they were like, well, "It shows what you know."
Yeah, exactly.
Well, then it sounds like maybe I don't need to go back and revisit the old narrated original theatrical cut version.
Nah.
Maybe out of posterity, out of a historical sort of a,
like I said, watch the first 5 minutes where we, once he hits Emmett Walsh's thing and everything, and you hear all that, you're going to be like, no, okay, this was the smart idea was to take this out.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're right about it, because later on, like I said, the aesthetics of it is what I appreciate even more. So I don't need all that narration to kind of ruin what's going on visually. I think for me,
what's this lady doing in my apartment? Blah 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 blah. Oh God, just. Stop it, bro.
And I love it now, and so much so that, and also I have Tiana's rating. She gave me her rating, so I can let you know what that is.
Okay.
But and it's the same as mine, so I give it 5. I'm going to the top on it, and I would not have given it that even in 1992 or so when I'd revisited it. I might have given it maybe a 3. But yeah, in the course of that time, since 92 to now, I don't know how many times I've seen it. I mean, it's not an inordinate amount of times, but more than a handful. And it has gotten better. It's grown on me more and more each time I've viewed it.
So you said Tiana gave it 5 as well? You said
she also gives it. She gives it a 5 as well.
Yeah, you both brought up an interesting point that this is that kind of movie that you kind of grow up into. If you watch it at a certain age, you'll be like, that movie was slow and kind of sucked, but the visuals, right?
Yeah,
and then once you get a little older, you start getting past the visuals, and now you start to understand the story more and appreciate the story more. So it's like it does age better, right? Like I think you just kind of grow up into it.
Yeah, when you're 14, you don't give a shit about the Tyrell Corporation. You don't get it.
Yeah, you don't.
Yeah, or William or Batty is his plight. You don't really. Yeah, it doesn't resonate with you as much as when you're older and listening to his speech and everything at the end.
Yeah. As an adult now, you go, oh, I get that.
Yeah.
And all the weirdness of J.F. Sebastian and his fucking. I still don't understand that part. But
here's my little fellows around here. Hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Speaking of that too, since you brought that up, there was another interesting thing I read about that scene when Daryl Hannah is introduced. And he's coming into where he lives, right? Going to the building. She's kind of like laying out in front of it, right? Or whatever. And then she goes running away from him when he's like, "Hey, what do you?" And then she runs away at first, right, and hits that truck window and breaks it with her elbow. But that was a complete accident. But it wasn't supposed to happen. It wasn't breakaway glass. It was real glass, and she like messed her elbow up pretty good. I guess.
Yeah, I bet.
But still, completed the scene or whatever, and then yeah.
Me, I agree with pretty much everything you guys have said. I'd say it's probably, for me, it's probably about I'm not going to say 5. I really do appreciate it and I love it and everything we've said about it, but like, it's not quite like top notch for me. Like, it's not like one of my top 10 favorite, 15 favorite type of flicks, but I love it. So I'm going to say 4.5 stars. It's still great. And it's definitely not the best of Harrison Ford. Probably, probably you could argue, right? Debate, whatever, subjective, whether it's the best Ridley Scott or not, right? And I'd probably say Alien's still better.
Here's the thing, though. I think we all forget sometimes how amazingly huge Ridley Scott's career is.
Yeah. It's because it's gone on for so long,
Yeah, he's been there forever. Well, and the funny part is like he started when he was like 40.
Yeah, that's nuts.
But he's done so many amazingly big things and stuff like that. It's funny because even as good a movie as Blade Runner is, I don't think it cracks the top 5 for most people. He's got some bangers in there,
no doubt. I would say
for me, I think I'm outside the box. I think on some people on this, and it might just be, like I said, my coming to it even later, the appreciating it more for the aesthetics. Certainly not for Harrison Ford's job in the movie because it's serviceable, but it's not great. Like we said, it's more Rutger Hauer's performance and everything. But yeah, there's something about it for me that I rate it higher than probably most people would.
This may not, like we've said, this may not be Ford's best, but I think this is Rutger Hauer's best. And the one that I'm sure he's tons of movies that I'm not thinking of, but the only other one that even comes to mind, it's even close to this, is The Hitcher.
Yep, that was what I was going to say.
Maybe Hobo with a shotgun.
That was a fun one.
For a later career thing, he was having a blast with that movie. Yeah. I saw that in a theater with a whole bunch of people and some old people who were coming in because it was the first time that the Charlotte Film Society was doing like really kind of edgy sort of programming and stuff. So a lot of old people came to this thing and they were not ready for that film.
What the hell? Yeah.
This old lady came out and she said, "That was the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my entire life."
And that was probably like the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Blind Fury, I appreciate that one from Rutger Hauer. And do y'all remember Wanted Dead or Alive with Gene Simmons was in it as a bad guy?
Oh yeah.
That's a fun one. I mean, that's not like great, of course. It's not like some masterpiece or whatever, but it is a fun 80s action movie. I think it's kind of on par with Cannon, even though it's not a Cannon film movie.
Yeah.
It's no Never Too Young to Die, but what is?
No.
Yeah.
No. What is,
So adding in Adam's 3.5 stars, that brings it to a total of 4.5 stars. So obviously we highly recommend it. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. What the fuck is wrong with you at this point?
You're broken.
It's what is it? 43? Yeah.
40 some odd. Yeah.
Something like that.
Well,
that right.
It's 82. I was born in 82. Yeah. 43.
There you go. 43. It's 43 years old. Come on, man. Go check it out. Next week, Smoke, you're gonna. We'll see whether you're gonna like this one or not, because sometimes the fan of the newer stuff.
Oh yeah.
You're a little sketchy on that, but we're going back to the horror well, obviously, in the rotation, and it was Tiana's choice, right? She picked this one. Yeah, she picked this one. So we're gonna be watching Deadstream from 2022, which I believe was a Shudder exclusive, if I'm not mistaken. So that is next week. So Adam, we appreciate you coming on. It was a blast.
Yeah.
Hopefully
it was a hoot as usual.
Hopefully we can make it a more reoccurring thing.
Yeah, I love
show
that.
Up every now and then. Yep. All right, that's enough. So for Tiana, who couldn't be with us, the Professor Smoke, I'm Josh. We are the All American Spook Show, and we'll talk to you next week.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.